Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB game scheduled for Tuesday, May 16th, 2023. Now, if you like what you see, make sure to give this video a big thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below, and if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. Alrighty, let's get into it. Here are the games for Tuesday in Major League Baseball. First up, we see the Los Angeles Angels taking on the Baltimore Orioles. Chase Silseth and Dean Kramer are your starters. Chase Silseth making his first start of the season after only being featured out of the bullpen. He has a 5-to-5 walk-to-strikeout ratio so far in 8 1/3 innings. Pretty concerning numbers for me. He's only got a 3.24 ERA, but I do see some regression in his game. And we saw his last start, or his last appearance out of the bullpen against the Rangers. He went 3 1/3. He gave up 5 base hits and 6 total runs. 3 of those were earned. 2 walks to go with it. And I do think the Orioles can get to him for a few runs early. And I got to say, Dean Kramer, although he's definitely not put together the best season overall, 4.97 ERA, he's definitely improving his game. I got to give him credit. Last start against the Rays, a very, very tough lineup, one of the best in baseball against righties. Kramer was really sharp in that game. He went 6 innings of shutout baseball. He gave up 4 base hits, and the Rays had a few opportunities with runners in scoring position, but he got out of the jams. His fastball velocity was up. He pitched really well in that game. I think he's good enough here. I think the Orioles bats are going to back him up, so give me the Baltimore Orioles on the money line in this one. Next up, it's the Pittsburgh Pirates taking on the Detroit Tigers. We should see Luis Ortiz and Michael Lorenzen on the mound in this one. Michael Lorenzen, although he's not really striking out a lot of guys in his last 2 games, 14 innings combined, only 4 strikeouts, and only 19 Ks through 28 innings overall this season. He's certainly improving his game since we saw him at the beginning of the year. His last 14 innings, like I mentioned, only 2 earned runs against the Mets and Guardians, and he's facing a Pittsburgh lineup, the Pirates, who at the beginning of the season, one of the best lineups in baseball, but in the last 2 weeks against right-handed pitchers, dead last in the league in team OPS and isolated power, and their strikeout rate is the highest in the league at 30%. So it's tough to back the Pirates here on the road. They've had to win. The games that they've won recently have been really low-scoring games. Mitch Keller's put together a couple of shutouts, but I don't think you're going to get that from Luis Ortiz and the Pirates bullpen in this game. I'm going to take the Detroit Tigers at a pretty good price on the money line. Next up, we see the Washington Nationals taking on the Miami Marlins. Josiah Gray and Jesus Luzardo are your projected starters. The Nationals have hit lefties pretty well in 2023, and the big thing is they limit strikeouts at the plate. In the last couple of weeks, only around a 15% strikeout rate as a team. Jesus Luzardo, I wouldn't necessarily say he's a strikeout-dependent starter, but he does have 48 Ks and 45 1/3 innings of work. And as of late, he's given up a lot of base runners, a lot of base hits and walks. His last start, 6 innings against the Diamondbacks, he gave up 7 base hits and 2 walks in that game. The game before that against the Braves, 5 2/3 innings, 7 base hits, a home run, and 3 walks. So, a lot of opportunities for teams with runners in scoring position against Luzardo. He's been able to do a pretty good job at getting out of jams, but he's also given up at least 1 home run in 3 of his last 4 starts. It's pretty concerning. Even though the Nationals don't have the most powerful lineup, I do think they can get to him for a few runs. And Josiah Gray has been pitching very well in 2023, a 2.96 ERA. The Marlins have struggled against right-handed pitchers this season. I'm going to take the Washington Nationals, getting the 1.5 runs here on the run line, sprinkle a little bit on the money line as well. Next up, we see the Toronto Blue Jays taking on the New York Yankees. Domingo Germán and Kevin Gausman are your starters. Kevin Gausman is one of the strangest pitchers in baseball, definitely one of the toughest pitchers to read when we're handicapping, because he's got really good per 9 numbers, strikeouts per 9, home runs per 9, walks per 9, and usually he's a strong starting pitching option for the Blue Jays in their rotation. But sometimes we've seen him really get shelled. We saw it a couple times this year against the Astros on April 17th, 7 earned runs allowed. Against the Red Sox on May 4th, 8 earned runs allowed and 10 base hits. The big thing is both of those games were on the road, and we saw last year Kevin Gausman actually struggled at home, but this season that's definitely not the case. Kevin Gausman's been very sharp at Rogers Center this year, a 1.8 ERA through 15 innings of work with 24 strikeouts to go with it. And I do think that he's going to pitch well in this spot against the Yankees team he already pitched well against at the beginning of the season, back on April 23rd. 7 innings, 11 strikeouts, shutout baseball, only 3 base hits allowed, and a 5-1 Blue Jays win. Domingo Germán, as of late, the control's been off a little bit. His strikeout numbers are down a little bit. I do think the Blue Jays are the better side here, so give me the Toronto Blue Jays on the money line at home. Next up, we see the Seattle Mariners taking on the Boston Red Sox. Luis Castillo and Nick Pivetta are your starters. This is a game that I think is a little bit trickier than what it may seem on paper. Obviously, you look at these pitchers on paper, it looks like a mismatch. Castillo has sub-3 ERA. Pivetta has an ERA above 6 at 6.23. Gave up 7 earned runs in his last game. He's given up a lot of home runs recently. But I still think when you look at Castillo, his last 3 starts have not been his best. I mean, the Mariners have lost all 3 of those games, and he gave up a home run in each of those games as well. The Red Sox do a good job at limiting strikeouts at the plate, especially against righties, and they have just good numbers overall this season against right-handed pitchers. So, yeah, I could see Castillo giving up a few runs, maybe a couple of home runs in this game. I'm still leaning towards Seattle because Nick Pivetta, like I mentioned, he is struggling. He's got that ERA above 6, but Seattle's got a pretty powerful lineup. Although their numbers haven't been the best against righties as of late, I still think they'll be able to get to Pivetta here for a few home runs. And if this is a close game late, I got to give the edge to the Mariners bullpen. It's been one of the better bullpens, especially as of late in the American League. And we've saw the Red Sox bullpen struggle a little bit in that series against the Cardinals, blowing some leads, and just overall it wasn't the sharpest this weekend. So I do think Seattle is the better side here, but I just don't think this game's going to be as easy as it may seem on paper. Next up, we see the Tampa Bay Rays taking on the New York Mets. Yonny Chirinos and Justin Verlander are your projected starters. You look at Yonny Chirinos, that ERA at 2.22. He's pitching pretty well so far in 2023, but I do have my regression concerns in his game. He's only got 9 strikeouts in 24 1/3 innings of work. In fact, he has more walks than strikeouts so far this season. To me, when you're facing a team like the New York Mets that already does a great job at limiting strikeouts, they work pitch counts, and they're definitely improving against right-handed pitchers. We saw him score 8 runs on Jake Irvin in the game this Sunday on the doubleheader. I think this could be a rough spot for Chirinos and the Rays pitching staff. And I've already mentioned that the Rays bullpen has regression concerns after a really hot start to the season. They're still up there in Sierra, next to teams like the A's, the Nationals, and the White Sox. So, I don't love this spot for the Rays pitching staff. I still think they can get to Verlander for a couple of runs, but Verlander has pitched very well so far in his first 2 games as a New York Met. 12 innings, 12 strikeouts, and he's got a 2.25 ERA. So, I think he's good enough here for the Mets to grab a W, a very important win. And this is a very important series for New York overall. Give me the New York Mets on the money line. Next up, we see the Milwaukee Brewers taking on the St. Louis Cardinals. Wade Miley and Jordan Montgomery, a pair of southpaws on the mound. And this one, for me, the Cardinals hit lefties a lot better than the Brewers do. It's been the case for quite a while. We saw that going back to last season. Wade Miley's coming off his worst start of the season by far, giving up 3 home runs in his last game and 7 total earned runs as well, and an 8-1 Brewers loss. Montgomery, although he's not been the sharpest this year, he already is above 4. I still think he's a much better option in this game and facing a really solid matchup. Facing that Brewers team, it just can't hit those left-handed pitchers. We saw Montgomery pitch against the Brewers at the beginning of the year. He went back on April 8th. He went 7 innings, 9 strikeouts, and no earned runs in a 6-0 Cardinals win. I think we see a similar scoreline in this game. Give me the St. Louis Cardinals on the money line with a little bit of a lean on the run line as well. Next up, we see the Atlanta Braves taking on the Texas Rangers. Should see Dane Dunning going for the Rangers. No official starter for the Braves right now. So, not my favorite game on the board as we don't have a ton of information right now. Both teams are dealing with some, injuries in their rotation, so they've had to bring up some minor leaguers and prospects that they didn't think they were going to have to bring up this early in the season. We saw that on Monday with Bradford for Texas, but, I'm leaning towards the Braves here because I do think they have the better lineup and the better bullpen. Atlanta may be going with a bullpen game here, and although the bullpen hasn't been as sharp as of late, I still think, on paper, it's one of the best bullpens, if not the best, in the big leagues this season. Dane Dunning on the other side for the Rangers. He's got good numbers on paper, 3-0 with that 1.72 ERA, but I do expect some regression as the season continues. Only 19 strikeouts and 31 innings of work. I'm going to take the Atlanta Braves in a lean right now. As we get some more info, maybe I'll like this game a little bit better. Next up, we see the Chicago Cubs taking on the Houston Astros. Justin Steele and Christian Javier on the mound in this one. And maybe a couple of weeks ago, I would be willing to take the Chicago Cubs in a game like this with Justin Steele on the bump, but although Steele's still pitching well overall in 2023, his strikeout numbers have really dipped as of late. That's pretty concerning in my opinion, and the Houston Astros are a much better lineup against lefties than they are against righties. In the last couple of weeks, Houston is top 15 in both team OPS and isolated power against those lefties with a low strikeout rate at 16.2%. So I do think Steele, who's having issues missing bats, could struggle in this game. And Christian Javier, a strong starting pitching option for the Astros, even better numbers at home this season, facing a Cubs lineup that's really struggled against right-handed pitchers in the last couple of weeks. We saw that this weekend against the Minnesota Twins. And now you look at the numbers, they're 18th in team OPS, Chicago is, and their isolated power numbers are also, outside the top 15, ranked 23rd in baseball with a pretty steep strikeout rate of 24.6% to go with it. Give me the Houston Astros here on the money line at home. Next up, we see the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Chicago White Sox. Shane Bieber and Lance Lynn are your projected starters. I think the Guardians have an advantage in almost all facets of the game in this matchup, as you got Shane Bieber pitching well this season, 2.61 ERA, solid numbers on the road, 2.73 ERA in 33 innings of work. And the really promising sign from Bieber in his last start was he was able to pick up 9 strikeouts in 6 innings of shutout baseball against the Tigers. Bieber wasn't really missing a ton of bats to start the year. To see him earn those 9 Ks against Detroit, it's a good sign to see from Bieber, and he pitched well against the White Sox last year. I think he pitches well in this spot, and Lance Lynn, not in good form going into this game. He struggled against the Guardians in the last start that he faced him in last season. He's given up at least 4 earned runs in each of his last 5 starts. The White Sox bullpen hasn't been very good this season. The Guardians bullpen's been much better. I got to take the Cleveland Guardians on the road here on the money line. Next up, we see the Cincinnati Reds taking on the Colorado Rockies. Chase Anderson going for the Rockies, no official starter for Cincinnati. That's right, Chase Anderson is now a member of the Rockies. He was just a Tampa Bay Ray last week. They released him. The Rockies picked him up. He's not pitched very well in his career at Coors Field. He's had some experience there because he was a Diamondback. He's really been all over the place, but he was a Diamondback for a couple of years. He was a Brewer for a little while. So he's got experience at Coors Field, but an ERA above 7. I don't know if this was the best pickup that the Rockies could make. I know they need some innings in that rotation, and it's never easy being a Rocky starting pitcher, but I think the Reds are going to get to him for a few runs early. Even though Anderson in his first 5 innings as a Tampa Bay Ray at the big leagues this season, he pitched well in those games. This is a completely different stadium. Obviously, Coors Field, the most hitter-friendly ballpark in the league. Chase Anderson, the Reds are very familiar with him. He was a Cincinnati Red last season, so I don't like his chances in this game. Give me the Cincinnati Reds on the money line. I think they get to Anderson early. In our next game, we see the Arizona Diamondbacks taking on the Oakland Athletics. We're going to see Tommy Henry and Kyle Muller on the mound in this game. Now, the Oakland A's hit lefties much better than they hit righties. That's been the case in the last month or so. And in the last 2 weeks, the Oakland A's have a pretty low strikeout rate, 20.9% against those left-handers. And their isolated power numbers and team OPS numbers aren't too shabby. I think they can get to Henry here, who still only has 9 strikeouts and over 20 innings of work. On the other side, Kyle Muller's got an ERA above 7. Even though Arizona hits righties a lot better than they hit lefties, the Diamondbacks are still, in the last couple of weeks, top 15 in both team OPS and isolated power against those left-handed pitchers. So I'm going to take the over in this game between Arizona and Oakland. Next up, we see the Kansas City Royals taking on the San Diego Padres. Brady Singer and Seth Lugo are your starters. I like the over in this game. I do think Brady Singer will eventually be a good option in this Royals rotation, but right now he is struggling. He's in the bottom first percentile in average exit velocity and hard hit percentage, so teams are getting a lot of extra base hits on him, home runs, doubles, triples, and I do think San Diego, even though their lineup's been pretty mediocre as of late, they still got big names in that lineup that can hit those extra base hits. I think they're going to be able to get to Singer in this ballgame, and Seth Lugo on the other side, also starting to give up a lot of sharp contact. He's given up 4 home runs in his last 3 starts, so at least 1 home run in each of his last 3 games. His strikeout numbers have gone down a little bit. The base hits are way up. And Kansas City, you wouldn't think it, but this is a lineup that puts together a lot of sharp contact at-bats. They put together good at-bats, and we've seen their offense improve in the last couple of weeks themselves. So give me the over in the Royals-Padres ballgame. Next up, we see the Minnesota Twins taking on the Los Angeles Dodgers. Bailey Ober and Clayton Kershaw are your starters. It's tough to be a righty or a lefty against the Dodgers right now. This lineup is crushing the baseball. Their numbers in the last couple of weeks, top 10 in both team OPS and isolated power against both lefties and righties. Dodgers against righties, which he'll be facing in Bailey Ober, 6th in the league in OPS and 3rd in baseball in isolated power, with a very low strikeout rate to go with it and a 12.6% walk rate, which is the highest in baseball. Bailey Ober gave up 2 home runs in his last game. I think he can give up another one at least in this one as well. And I think the Dodgers pitching staff is in good shape here with Kershaw starting. You got the Minnesota Twins struggling mightily against left-handed pitchers, striking out quite a bit. Their OPS numbers are also, not great at all. They're ranked 27th in the league in the last couple of weeks. So I think Kershaw pitches well. I think the Dodgers bats back him up. I think the bullpen's good enough here. Give me the Los Angeles Dodgers on the run line at home. And the final game we're to talk about for Tuesday's card in Major League Baseball, it's the Philadelphia Phillies and the San Francisco Giants. Zach Wheeler and Alex Cobb are your projected starters. Great pitching matchup on paper. We got 2 guys that are in great form going into this game at a very pitcher-friendly ballpark. Alex Cobb, a 1.7 ERA overall, an even better 1.35 ERA at home this year at Oracle Park. He's only given up 3 home runs this season in 47 and 2/3 innings. Very impressive stuff. Even more impressive when you find out he pitched in that Mexico City series game against the San Diego Padres. So, Cobb's keeping the ball on the ground. Really good ground ball percentage this year. His last game, 17-6 ground ball to fly ball ratio against the Diamondbacks. That was 7 1/3 shutout innings against Arizona. Zach Wheeler's last start, 7 innings, 1 run ball, 7 strikeouts against the Blue Jays, and a 2-1 final score in extra innings. Both of these pitchers in great form. Give me the under in the first 5. Don't trust these bullpens all the time. They've been inconsistent this year, so give me the under in the first 5. And that's it. Those are the games for Tuesday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe. And don't forget to put your baseball picks in the comments section below. Again, if you're looking for my best bet, you can find those at Pickdawgz Premium. As always, this is Ron Romanelli. Good luck.